On the night of 6th December, just a few minutes before midnight, a big fire engulfed the Romeo Lane outlet in Goa, claiming 25 lives. The first fire call was made around 11:45 p.m. And guess what? At 1:17 a.m., just 1.5 hours after that, the Luthra brothers who owned that particular outlet booked a flight out to Phuket. At 5:30 a.m. on the morning of 7th December, they had flown out to Phuket before the authorities could realize what had happened and began their hunt for them. But today, on 11th December, the law has finally caught up with the Luthra brothers. The Thai immigration authorities, the Thai royal police has gone and nabbed the Luthra brothers from Hotel Indigo in Phuket. And for all we know, in the next few days, the Luthra brothers could be back in Delhi and back in Goa finally to face the law. On Reporters Roundtable this time, I am joined by Simran, Arundhanta and Ankur to discuss what has gone on behind the scenes and how this whole effort was mounted by India to actually get back the Luthra brothers. So Simran, when it actually happened on the morning of the 7th, the authorities and the agencies were getting slammed that how could you let these people escape? Were you sleeping? Obviously, Luthra brothers were faster than the authorities. But do you think what has happened today by the nabbing of these both the brothers also shows the work that was silently happening behind the scenes over the last 4 days?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when we go back and look at the documents as well, they are a proof in complete series of how not just this fire was the incident that is being talked about, but how exactly the entire system in which the Nexus was being operated by the Luthra brothers, who were the last point where the irregularities started happening. But initially it dates back to 2023, and that is what this incident has exposed. 2023 notices that were put up. Then, following the notices, there were demolition notices as well. The panchayat did take the cognizance. Then, the panchayat, on that order, there is something, a body which is called Goa Coastal Management Authority. That also is being put up in questions. So, of course, what is happening right now is not as alarming as what over the course of 2 years has been happening. And these the Luthra brothers and the duo that has finally been detained are just, in fact, the last point. But before that, the person who is still on the run, Sandeep Khosla, and the people who had given, not even given the full possession of the land to Sandeep Khosla, he had forged the documents by forging the signatures and all of that. I mean, this is definitely a recipe of making, shaping a disaster that could potentially not just put the lives at threat for the people who are there, but the management, the staff, everyone who's concerned on that land. This is as much as of about the flouting the norms of the fire, but also for the land that has,
Well,
in
Well,
point.
absolutely. I think for the last 2 years, this particular outlet was screaming irregularities. And the Goa chief minister saying that there were certain officers who were shielding this particular outlet despite whistleblowers lodging complaints after complaints. That is actually a dead giveaway that obviously this outlet had huge protection. And the Luthra brothers did enjoy that protection. But also, what has happened in the last 3 days is that the authorities, after I would say the setback of them absconding from the country, the steps that have been taken since then, especially the blue corner notice being issued by the Interpol, of which we have now have a copy of, exerting pressure on Thailand that these people should be, both the Luthra brothers should be sent back to India. Then I think the move of the Ministry of External Affairs to move to suspend their passports, because once you suspend somebody's passport, that person becomes non gratia in that country, and that country usually sends that back country saying sends it the person back to your home country saying he's no longer on the required in that particular country. But Ankur, just one thing I wanted to one another thing which has happened, that India has not, though there's a extradition treaty between India and Thailand from 2013. India has not gone down that route regarding Luthra brothers, because obviously extradition will take a lot of time. Multiple courts, multiple appeals. We are going for deportation of the Luthra brothers. What is the distinction between an extradition and a deportation, and how has India managed to convince Thailand authorities to actually deport the Luthra brothers?
So, Aman, basically the extradition process is very lengthy. It requires a legal process. One has to, there is a principle of natural justice. One has to present the court in front of court. Indian agencies also present their case. But in this particular case, the Indian authorities took a different route. They cancelled the passport, and through that passport, basically Thailand authorities forced to nab the Luthra brothers. So they took the different route, and in fact in the blue corner notice, it doesn't give you the basically the license to arrest the person. One has to break the local immigration laws. So the Indian authorities took this route. Without passport, nobody can travel any country. So now Luthra brothers are without passport. So obviously they have floated the immigration rule, and now this particular legality will be used by Indian authorities to bring back the Luthra brothers back to India. And certainly the deportation is much easier. The one country can easily ask the other country to deport one particular person, and but it certainly requires the breaking of local immigration laws. So in this particular case, it could be forged visa, wrong information, and other details. In this particular case, they could have taken the fake, wrong, invalid passport of Luthra brothers in this matter.
Well, also there is a political side to this entire story, and Arun, first I thought the Goa chief minister was a lot on the back foot because the way he's himself admitting that IAS and IPS officer top ones may have shielded the Luthra brothers, so who was really protecting him inside the Goa government, and now the BJP, once they are being brought back to India in the next few days, is claiming credit that under the Modi government, we always get back all these fugitives. The big ones may not have come, but other criminals we always manage to get back. So, what do you see the BJP's politics in there, and do you think the Goa government is under fire?
Well, that's right, Aman. The first of all, of course, the chief minister was answering the queries of media, and many questions were asked from him. And of course, it was difficult for him to answer at that point in time because things, of course, went out of his hands. Of course, both of them, Luthra brothers, had left the country, and now, of course, they've been taken into custody in Thailand. But as you rightly mentioned, that now BJP, of course, saying here is that okay, they've left the country, but now they will be brought back to the nation. And they're also citing some instances in the past. The most recent one is the Habur Rana that has been brought to the country in 2025. There were instances like Christian Michel of Augusta Westland. Rajiv Saxena is also being mentioned here. He was also involved in the Augusta Westland case. And you also have Deepak Talwar, aviation scam guy was involved in that. He has also been brought back to the country. So BJP, of course, is putting out that list saying that, look, okay, these people have gone out of the country, but now after the efforts of Prime Minister Modi and the External Affairs Ministry, they've been brought back into the country. But now coming back to Goa, Aman, we have seen it seems to be a very big nexus. Though three government officials have been suspended by the government there in Goa, but it seems to be a larger nexus. And I think this is the best opportunity for the Goa government also to really go into the root cause of this matter. You have thousands of restaurants and bars in Goa, and their economy largely dependent on tourism. And especially with this episode, for at least coming few weeks, you would not see people going there, and they will be hesitant to go to restaurants and bars. So I think this is a high time for the government to really find out the root cause of it, because if you talk about this specific restaurant bar, there were no NOC of the fire there. There were cases against them, complaints were filed against that restaurant, and also, of course, there were various other rules and regulations which were not followed by this. So it was a disaster which was expected, and these unfortunately 25 people who were there, especially 20 of them, were the workers of that restaurant, and that shows the kind of condition in which they were put up there in that restaurant. I think it's a high time for the government, for the BJP government in the state, to really go into the root cause of these problems and ensure that when tourists are enjoying there, they have this thing in their mind that now, of course, we are safe. And also family members who are staying at their homes, they're also not worried about their relatives
The
who are
Goa
there in
elections
Goa.
are also not far away.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's why I'm saying that Chief Minister has to really set an example here. Of course, there will be a few calls from Delhi also, from the top leadership. He would be in touch with them. So that's why I'm saying that he will have to ensure that no untoward incident happens again. And also, most importantly, these people who are the real culprits, who are the responsible people for this, they're brought back and they are brought to the justice.
Absolutely, and I think the most stark part of also this entire tragedy is that the Luthra brothers escaped from the country, while out of the 25 people who died, 20 were their own staff members. So, not even waiting to console the families of their own staff members. We've had certain testimonies from families in Assam who also question the same, that they should be brought back and put to justice, because they've not even cared for their own staff members. And in fact, Simran, when you spoke to Bhavna, who's the one of the, there were only 5 tourists in this particular, sadly, in this death toll, and one of them is Bhavna, who is the family member, and 4 family members lost their lives. She also exposed in a big way the irregularities which were there at this particular club.
Well, absolutely. Because she was the only person at that point of time. The family also was very, very relieved that at least we have one member of our family in front of us. The family was, of course, mourning the loss of their 4 members, and their bags were not even unpacked. That was the most telling image I can recount, because when I visited their home, it was, of course, the environment was so grief held, because at the same time Bhavna spoke that my husband was the one who has been also one of the victims who have died. He noticed that the spark is happening, and even though the management staff did not do anything, these were the customers that were sitting, or you can say the visitors that were sitting. They noticed and they started pouring the water by glass. So that goes on to say the sheer ignorance. When you have a staff that is very ignorant, when you have the owners that have no accountability to offer at all, and later on, these are the people. One thing that she told me, and that has stuck with me also, is the fact that for our entire generations now, Goa is banned. She's like, we belong to a place, and we went to have some good time for the very first time in our lives. She said, as a family, this was a group of 4 sisters, and 2 of my sisters, they were found in a condition fully burnt. The bodies were not even being identified. That's so horrifying tale that she was telling me. And she said both of them were holding their hands. While they were trying to exit, most people must have, in an attempt to save themselves, they must have ran over them. And that is what she said, that how could we trust any sort of authority? How can we trust any government, any place? And if we have to think through all of this, that we may not come back as a unit. This is the most telling part, and something that, of course, bothers you after you revisit these conversations
Extremely
later.
tragic.
And if I can ask you a very interesting question, why do you think that these Luthra brothers have chosen to go to Phuket only? I mean, they could have gone to any other place.
Maybe the only Indigo flight that was working that day was to Phuket. But I was seeing Instagram feed of Saurabh Luthra last night, and they have been to Phuket a lot of times. So maybe it's a holiday destination for them. Though they may not have been at the spot, but there is no denying that they owned that particular place, which had various violations which were flagged over the last 2 years. And especially the conduct of the Luthra brothers is something that the prosecution will point out before the court, that how they escaped. They didn't even wait to console the families of their own staff. And I think this is something in the next few days, in the next couple of days, maybe when we see the Luthra brothers being brought back to Delhi and ultimately to Goa, will the wheels of justice move quickly to bring them to justice? Will convictions happen? Will some sort of balm be given to the pain of the 25 families who have lost their near and dear ones? Well, that remains to be seen, because a lot is said in the media and a lot is said when these cases happen, but what do they actually hold up in courts is something that we will watch out for. Thank you so much for joining us on Reporters Roundtable on CNN News 18.